just going to invite Madeleine to join us, and then we're going to get started. There we go.
Excellent.
Okay. I am going to hand the camera off to my trusty cameraman, Candace. Am I in there?
I'm turning you up.
Oh, I forgot my notes. Give me 1 second, everybody.
I got my wine.
Good.
Okay.
I have.
Thanks, sweetie.
Yeah, so hello, everybody. Welcome to another one of our Friday Happy Hour live streams. Joined with by Instagram Live with Madeleine Lamont. So, who's joining us from Toronto? Sorry, I'm a little distracted. Maybe I need to take a sip.
I'll take a sip.
Hopefully, you all have your beverage of choice as well. We're going to do kind of a casual chat with Madeleine and tour her show a little bit as well. I have some notes, but you know, these things kind of also just flow. So I'm going to do a little introduction, and then I'm not going to rely as heavily on them. So yeah, as I just said, we're trying something a little different. Usually I do these on Facebook and post them to Instagram, but this time around, just so we could have Madeleine involved, I'm doing it as an Instagram live, and then I'll be posting it to Facebook later, so that my Facebook friends can also view it down the road. Also, just a little note that we're currently open by appointment only on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but then we are also open to the public on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays from 10 to 12.
Oh, great.
So I'm going to, coming up, so my next live stream booked is with Lori Lukasiewicz, and that is going to be on June 18th. So stay tuned for more information about that. And I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction for Madeleine, and then I'll let her introduce herself, and we'll start touring. Celebrated for her exquisite and contemporary take on the Dutch tradition of botanical illustration, Madeleine's work conveys a sense of urgency with her expressive floral paintings on both canvas and mylar. Her fervid brushstrokes and gestural sketches combine to capture the moment of utmost beauty before the inevitable decay, calling to mind notions of growth and joy alongside death and loss. Madeleine is a Toronto-based artist whose work has been widely exhibited and collected for almost 3 decades. Anything else you want to add to that, Madeleine?
No, that sounded very nice. Thank you. Yeah. The only one thing I want to say before I forget is that I just want to thank Carl for that lovely script that he did behind you. And I mean, that's just perfect. That's exquisite. Thank you so much.
And even Candace,
and I love the way that you layered the mylars over top of it, and had some of the text peeking through. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just get Candace to pan over it here. Because, I mean, maybe that's a good place to start too, because you're, you know, this is a quote by Claude Monet. I must have flowers, always and always. So, what is it about Claude Monet, and what is it about this quote that I guess like really...
Well, you know, when I was preparing for this show, I really just stumbled across this quote, and it was at a time we were, you know, we're still in lockdown, but we were really, it was cold, it was winter, and, you know, I had this incredible craving for spring, obviously, and sort of the optimism that would be. And then when I heard that quote, I thought, oh, yeah. Always and always. I just want those. I mean, there's something about, I think this just in our human nature to be attracted to, you know, botanicals and, you know, foliage, anything outdoors. And I think if we haven't spent a winter like this,
I know,
where our only escape really from the hibernation has been, you know, walks outside. I mean, that you're restricted to it. So, yeah, I just really craved it. And it was just a quote I stumbled upon. And I do like Monet's work, and I love the water lilies I've seen at the Monet, at the MoMA, sorry, in New York.
Mhm.
And they're really captivating. But and a lot of his other work as well. But the quote just struck me this year. Yeah.
Well, it really is perfect because, um, as you said in your artist statement as well, I mean, you are an artist who has painted flowers always, um,
Mhm.
you know, in a lot of ways. And you painted other things, but certainly you come back to the florals. Now,
Yeah, they've been concurrent all the time.
yes,
You know, like if I really am feeling stuck, my greatest release is to just, you know, tape a piece of paper on the wall and go back to this tradition really that I have now. Yeah.
well, and I've always kind of, you know, joked with people about this, but it's even more, I think, timely with the pandemic, that when purchasing your work, of course, you can enjoy a garden year round, right? So you don't have to necessarily say goodbye to those flowers seasonally, like they can
Yeah.
your space, even in the dreariest depths of winter, right?
Right.
And it's no coincidence either that we kind of time your shows for May, typically every couple of years, because I think this is a time, especially in Calgary. I mean, I think in Toronto there you're a lot greener than we are, but we're just
Right.
starting to have kind of things pop up in our gardens. It's just starting. Oh, we had snow yesterday. So
Well,
that way.
oh, you had snow yesterday? I hate to tell you, but it was such a hot day today. We were sweltering, but finally, right? Um,
But I get
yeah,
it.
I think that we crave this seasonal change, and we crave the renewal, the real renewal, the metaphor of renewal. You know, we're
Yeah.
just, and we've turned, you know, at least I have, to it's really suited my purpose this winter to, you know, think about uh, the botanicals and the spring, and hopefully what will come then, the anticipation,
Well,
you know.
yeah, no, exactly. And yeah, having you here talk about that too. I mean, again, something that also really resonated with me, just after such a long, well, see, I mean, winter wasn't any longer, but having been, I guess, like with that isolation,
It really
seeing,
felt long. It really felt long. It felt like we were hibernating, and the world was hot. Well, I mean, Canada was in, you know, in a cold freeze, hibernating, and I kind of feel like I was in sync with all of that. Obviously, you know, for obvious reasons, we're all locked down, metaphorically, even, right? So
well, I guess, I mean, we might as well just start here. I get the one thing that I did want to mention is, I mean, of course, you're known for your peonies. Love your peonies. Like, I have one myself. But we see these daffodils, and
yeah, the daffodillies. Well, you know, so when you asked me to start sending you titles, I had to really, as you know, I always resist titles.
yes, yes,
But I thought, okay, so I'm going to title them with their, measure their peak, measure their time, right? So this is how long they peak for. But
okay.
also, I did those kind of in real time, like they were coming up in my neighbor's yard. And I thought, yeah, oh, thank God, here they are. And that yellow, the yellow
I know it's
was, it's intense. It's kind of optimistic, right? You know, I never really looked at them so much before.
well, it's funny you say that because yes, of course, like I've seen, and we'll move on and we'll see the tulips, but
Mhm.
tulips kind of roll in over the years. But
Yeah.
this completely new, there's like a freshness of the vibrancy, and I was curious about that too. Like just if you were painting them real time, so you just answered that. Like because these are the early bloomers in the spring that we kind of, look forward to seeing on our walks and in our gardens and in our community parks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I guess I noticed them this year more than I have in the past. So that's why they made it.
I have more new news for 2021, the daffodil.
Yeah. Daffodils. Yeah.
Yeah, they're so great. And I mean, Candace, let's switch over to this gallery a little bit, because the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, Madeleine, is the shift in palette, because I know that was also something that was noticed in intention. Or was it intentional, or did it just happen as a response?
I think a little bit of both, but I certainly had a ambition to create something with an intense color palette, and having gone through this intense period, right? So I wanted to certainly use colors that reflected that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would start off the work with this, as vivid as something as I could mix up, and then try to temper it. So tone it down and make it more minimal and more stylized. I don't know. I feel like for myself that this work is a little bit cleaner. And yes, I have thrown in a little bit of color here, the green a little bit, but it's not a natural palette, because we're not in what we're going through feels so weird and unnatural, but I mean, it happens, right?
Hey, good point. I hadn't really thought about that connection before. We were right. It's like, this is like ramped up. And
it is intense. It's intense. And
I love that about it. And I love these little bits of green and gray and pale blues that kind of peek through as like almost like the shadows in some of them.
Yeah.
You'll notice that we have 2 already sold in this room as companions.
Oh, good.
And I think, sometimes like these yellows and oranges can be tough for people, but honestly, when they're walking through, we need it. And I think the response has overwhelmingly been like, yes,
It's kind of they're optimistic. And I mean, I feel they were an attempt to be optimistic anyway, even if that attempt is somewhat like forced in your face.
Right.
Yeah. But, like the one behind you, I was so happy with that piece. I feel like it was a bit of a breakthrough in many ways from the work I've been doing before. And everything is in bloom there, right? Like nothing, flowers open, and then the next one comes, and then the next one comes. But with this, I thought, okay, it's the whole season all in one. And they're staying, they're going to,
well,
be all the same color.
Yeah, and I love this one too, because again, it is very different from your work. I think I referred to it as like kind of like the silhouette piece, but it is, instead of having like these, kind of like single stems, you get, like all of it. I love this layout.
Well,
You don't often
I wanted to sort of line them up in a row, like soldiers in a way, not really, but I just wanted them to each be sort of like a continuum, and you're getting a slice, because I mean, that's what the garden is. It's a memento mori. It's a metaphor for, the cycle and evolution and all that kind of stuff. So not to get too whatever, I think.
No, for sure. But I mean, yes, they're beautiful things, but yeah, your work is very much inspired by, some pretty kind of a bigger genre. It's like historically, and you've kind of created your own characterization.
I think it dates back to, the dawn of time. Like the cave wall had little botanicals on it. I think, the human psyche has always been attracted to these shapes and what they represent. There's something very, I guess, comforting maybe with that natural forms, right?
Well, and I just want to point out, I know Candace kind of panned in a little bit. What I also love about this piece too is we have, like, this one's just, it's just almost barely there, this plant. And then we've got like really intense blooms. Like it's, you know, like
Yep.
there's so much kind of different layers of like kind of control with like the fading and the intensity that I also really love. So I know I say this a lot, everybody, but you just have to come and see them in person because you're only really getting like the tip of the iceberg as far as the intensity of the color and the beauty of the series. So plug, we can accommodate you for a private visit if you're more comfortable with that. You're normally wearing a mask, but I'm not right now, obviously, because you wouldn't be able to hear me. But we welcome you to come in for a private visit if that is more your thing. Tuesdays and Wednesdays, we can accommodate that, or otherwise, Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, 10 to 5. Come, not tomorrow, though. We're closed for the long weekend. But
Right.
I kind of cut you off, but let's maybe move to, let's go to this room. Because we have a couple of like, well, one, we have this stunning yellow tulip. So again, was this in your neighbor's garden too, or was this in your garden?
Well, you know what? I think it was in my neighbor's. They're on the sunny side of the street, I say. And I got two avid gardeners right in front of me. I'm lucky that way. And yeah, you know, they're the ones that say, okay, you got to get your bulbs in now. And it's getting really cold. Okay, I got to get my bulbs in because I know how disappointed I'll be if I don't, you know, because I do look forward to that. And lucky enough to have, I'm just in a little narrow Victorian cabbage town in Toronto, and we have a little patch, but there's a lot you can do to fill up that little patch. So yes, yeah, that came out of it. And I mean, you know, tulips are, my sister and I spent, you know, a lot of this early spring because she's overseas in Belgium and her tulips were up first. And because she is, you know, living in the mecca of the tulip bulb, she has her own personal tulip man that she consults, and the exotic, you know, rare kind of bulbs that she can get, and then she sends them to me. So some of these are hers, actually.
Oh, that's
some
great.
Of these are hers, and some, you know, yeah.
Well, you can tell this one almost has like a bit of a ruffled edge, maybe. Like I don't know a lot about tulips, but
the parrot tulip. It's the parrot.
Oh, okay, okay. Because I know there's also an intense history even behind the tulip, right? Which I love. You captured it so beautifully here. Like just again in this amazing yellow, but with like little hints of green and a little bit of like reddish orange to round it out. But it's just like it's thrusting its little head out there, like I'm here.
Yeah. No, they want to be looked at. But that's what they do in real life. They want to attract attention, right? So I'm not deviating that far from their real purpose.
No, you're just like enhancing it really. And then of course we have this iris, which I'm particularly in love with for so many reasons. I love this piece. I love the scale of it. But I also find the palette really interesting because you've got like these purples, but then there are, you know, these little bits of orange coming through. So tell us a little bit about this one, because as you know, I've been using it for promo. I think it's pretty special.
Oh yeah. Well, I did start the Iris series a couple years ago, where I did sort of that, like you have one in the blue,
right?
And but what I guess what I start to play around with, I mean, it's not totally monochromatic, that piece, but I feel like they're in the same sort of family. But I started to play with the shadow, and what I wanted to do with the shadow, and I think that's what's making it sort of pop a bit, is that these shadows, they're very kind of flat and graphic and opaque. So they don't really relate to a normal shadow. And I wanted them to just be in places where they would either frame or cover up, but they're not dark. They're light, right? So, I mean, I guess in a way, my own little way of thinking. It's like I'm making the shadow brighter, but solid.
Well, you really have, and I want to point that out to some people too, because, of course, been working with you for many years, so every show I see a little shift, a little change, and that was one that I noticed was, these shadows, and the addition of them into the work, and I love it. I really do. I think they're so subtle, and at first, I guess in the digital images you sent me, I did not really notice them. It wasn't until I got them on the floor, or not on the floor, on the wall, and lit them, that I really started to kind of notice them, right? And just, again, this like kind of other beautiful layer to it. Because I had one client, set of clients come in last weekend who have a couple of your pieces, they were commissions, and they have a lot of sketching. And she'd also pointed out, and maybe you want to comment on this, that that used to do more of the sketching with the graphite, or you see a lot more of it, whereas there is some colored pencil, but there's, I guess, more of these shadows kind of popping up as opposed to some of that, like the gestural kind of almost immediate, very immediate looking kind of sketching in graphite.
Right. Well, I think, I certainly had an intention to make things a little bit more still and minimal, I guess, because I've been pretty gestural in the past, and I wanted to keep them contained and almost controlled. Right. And when I think back to it, I think it again is like referencing what we've all been through. I just want things to be cleaner and controlled, and I think that sort of fell into this work maybe a bit. If it can explain it, I don't really know why.
No, fair enough.
I did spend a lot of time, fixing up those shadows so that they would be opaque and dense compared to the paper, and in unusual shape. And the work is a bit cleaner. I don't know. I find that I spent a lot of time making sure every drop was in the right place. And if it wasn't, it was gone. Yeah.
Right. Well, and, just as, now I lost my train of thought. Maybe it'll come back to me.
They're very structured and controlled plant with this sort of floppy top, and I was attracted to that kind of solidness, I guess. Right. They have rigid stems. I mean, just in my own mind, I thought I want to make in the past, the blooms have been bending over and breaking and flimsy and stuff. And I think I wanted a kind of a solidness.
I'm going to see if Candice can just zoom in here to get a little bit more of a close-up on some of your brushwork, because it is really lovely. And I've always loved that about your work. Like, you can really sense the kind of immediacy with which you work. But you're right, I hadn't considered that. I guess they are a little cleaner and more structured than previously, but still with that, kind of like trademark, like Madeleine Lamont, like, gestural and really intuitive way of laying down, your marks and your color, right?
Right.
Okay, let's see this little beauty.
I got to tell you, I had a hard time parting with that one.
Oh, really?
And I had a hard time parting with the one in the front. I just felt as though both of these were kind of a breakthrough is a kind of a funny word when you've been doing something for so long, but I was just very happy with the direction, and maybe they were amongst the earliest ones, but I don't know. I missed that one. I missed it.
And sometimes you want to hold on to those pieces as kind of a reference point, right? Because, and that artists have done that, right? Like where it's, that piece can kind of be just a trigger. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying it was a breakthrough. Like, the show is, yes, it is florals you've been painting, but they're different. Like I said, I saw it right away. But every show I see a shift. Like I kind of, There's always a bit of excitement for me as well when I unroll, like the big unveiling as I unroll them, because people may not know, but she ships them in a tube, so they come in this tube, and I unroll them kind of on a large piece of foam core, and then it's just like, you know, like just, you're overwhelmed kind of like all the color. It's literally like Christmas, but actually better because it's in spring and it's, you know, you're filled with more color. Okay, let's keep moving. And for those of you that are watching us too, we are not going to do a full hour because I know a lot of people are like, oh, an hour is so long. So we're just going to talk until we're kind of done, and then we'll just end it there. Okay,
so that's what I started. I actually started it last year and then never finished it and wasn't happy. So when I'm talking about the shadow, when I started to put those shadows in, I thought, okay, so this is making this better. It was very messy before, and something about that I really was drawn to cleaning up. And so part of what that opaque shadow is that method, I guess you can say. And I much prefer its state now. I lived with it for a long time, Christine, and then I thought, okay, now's the time to sort of fix it up. And that's the thing, you know, I was saying before about the Mylars on paper, is that I really do make quite a few and then hone in on the ones that are working and have a stack of ones that I'm not happy with, right?
Okay. See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. And so, but the great thing about those ones that I consider, you know, seconds or mistakes is that, and I don't consider this at all, I actually consider this a learning from something that I was unhappy with. And that's the best part of making mistakes, is that you can go back and there, you know, that's what makes your work evolve, is really accident.
Well, and this one to me seems kind of like a transitional piece. Like I could tell it very much kind of feels like the ones that, you know, we had, you know, from your last kind of shipment here, with the way you used color and render. But then, yes, you're right. Like there is some of these like shadows showing up too. So interesting, because is this, and I mean, then those transitional pieces are important too, because they mark that change. And
no, it was definitely a shift, and I was really happy after I discovered what I was doing with the shadows and could use them to frame this in a way that made me really happy. So.
And let's get, let's look at this one a little bit too. Again, I just love the color in this. Yeah, you really kind of nailed it on the head, Madeleine. Like with the color, as soon as I read your artist statement, I'm like, exactly. Like, this is how we're feeling. Like it's, and it's interesting how you can take something like, the genre of painting flowers, and that still will, of course, there be a response to it from what we've gone through as a society, right? Like, everything is impacted. But I just love where you've gone with it too. And this one over here, because this one, I don't know, this one is so happy because it has like all the colors. It has the orange, yellows, and the pinks. I think I was one of the last ones. I can't remember. So when I work, I usually put about 3 or 4 or 5 pieces of paper on the wall. And so when I'm working with a certain color, I'm able to go into other works with that color. So I think my series, I think pieces always have a little bit of a relationship to each other. I just want to check my notes to see if there's anything else I really want to ask you. Well, there was one thing, and then we can maybe, start to wrap it up. Unless there's anything else you want to say, but I did want to kind of talk about those blue ones a little bit. So because they are, again, a little, I guess, different in palette, but I love the blue as well. Let's come over here. Let's see this beauty, because I know you've worked with these blues before, right? And this one, of course, has like the navy. And I think this is probably, you would say, is more of like a transitional piece
Again,
as well.
again, yeah, so that was something that I probably was working on, you know, over the winter, but before preparing for this show.
Right.
And thinking about doing work in this monochromatic palette. So I had done these before. And again, they've referenced that sort of interest in the Dutch masters because it's that Delft blue kind of, you know, I guess that was the impetus with that series initially. And, you know, then things evolved from that. But that's where that palette color would have come from.
Yeah, I love it. And maybe we'll just even, I know we're kind of standing in front of it, but we didn't really talk about it before I pulled the camera away. But let's look at this iris again, because yeah, this is also kind of blown up. Like this is
right.
Giant.
Well, I started the iris series, I guess, a couple of years ago. And this was a bit of an unfinished piece. And I decided when I was working on the blue one this winter that I would go back and tackle it. And I've done a couple that scale before. And, you know, I really, for me, they're a little bit of a, you know, they came, I don't know, out of I was grieving a little bit. I just lost my mother. And this was my response to that. And I did this big iris series because they're just this very strong flower, I guess. And it felt like the proper muse for what I was going through at the time. And really, the shape is, it's like, it's of the body. It's like, I wanted it to relate to you physically. Mm-hmm. So it's like a, you know, a dancer in a way. I know.
Well, and do you, I mean, this just made me think too, so do you buy like a ridiculous amount of flowers or like?
Sometimes I do. Like I was saying to my daughter earlier today, you know, I mean, I don't have to right now because I got everything. I slam it into my little patch of grass. So I got irises coming up. I got the peonies. I got them all. And I also have full sun at the front, which I never had for years. So everything has changed for me. I can grow this kind of thing. But yeah, you know, it's one of those things, I guess, I've always loved. I don't buy them all the time, but I certainly, you know, like to work
in your house. Like, does like every room have like a beautiful vase of flowers?
No, but
inquiring minds want to know.
I have to just boast a little bit quickly, and I don't know if I should even take you there because it's a distraction, but I planted a cherry tree in my backyard, a mock cherry, and I've been getting compliments from them. It's taken 4 or 5 years. I thought I got a dud. And like, you know, we're all packed in here. So all of my neighbors have been saying, I love your blooms. I love your cherry tree. So I kind of have this thing where I got to keep something always coming up because it just makes me happy, right?
No, for sure. And that's like a good garden, right? I mean, it took me years to kind of figure that out too. Like not just planting everything so it just like blooms at once and it's gone, right? There's like a skill to having like these things come up and then these things, you know. And
it is a serious art form in itself, and I am no expert. I have wasted so much that doesn't come forward. Yeah. And then I get a couple of lucky moments, but yeah, I
just roll the dice per the universe, and you know, if it's not happening in one location, I'll move it. But yeah, I guess I was always curious about that, like how much, you know, I know, you know, obviously, like you can get, a lot of these like as cut flowers, but just what your garden was and how, if that's become, you know, because with so many people, I think, kind of also reconnecting or maybe connecting for the first time with nature, right? Like over this last year. I think this show is a great introduction. Again, the garden year round, right? So.
Yeah, the garden year round. I mean, I think it would be pretty gloomy if And, you know, in the winter I do buy flowers in the winter. I keep thinking I should be writing them off if I'm painting them.
Absolutely.
Why not? Right?
An expense.
They're an expense.
For creative practice.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe I was just going to check the time. I guess that's probably, we're a little over a half an hour. So I guess, is there anything else you'd like to add to the conversation, Madeleine, or should we just wrap it up?
No, but just, you know, thank you for having it. You gave me a really good deadline, and I needed it. I think I needed that focus, and it was nice to have that. Because, you know, we've been through such a hard, it's just been so hard, right? So
it has, and you know, and I was looking at it, and it was like, oh yeah, because we usually have a show every 2 years, and I think last year would have been the 2 year. Anyway, it was like kind of interesting how it worked out, and
yeah,
and I'm pleased for it. Like I said, I think more so than any other show we've had, like the work is just so much more needed. Let's put it that way. Like,
oh, that's nice.
Something about it that even the people we have had in already just, you know, had a little bit of color therapy as well, right? Like come in and just spend some time with them. Like to have a little plug for, well, Candace, who is manning the camera, is also our framer extraordinaire.
Oh, wow.
So we have these just, of course, like hanging on the wall with magnets, but they would need to be framed. We frame them in shadow boxes. There's lots of options. We have some examples. We can even show you at the gallery. So, you know, love to talk to you about framing one of these beauties for your own home, or alternately, if you have any framing projects, like we do it all. Diplomas, like whatever, arts, family photos. But thank you again, Madeleine. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you. I always tell people too that you're exactly like your artwork, because you do have this, you know, bright personality too. So I just really appreciate you joining us for this live stream, and I hope you have an amazing long weekend in your garden.
Yeah, same to you. And thanks for having me.
For sure. And like I said, gallery, well, like I said earlier, I'm going to reiterate it. We're open by appointment only Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and open to the public on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays from 10 to 5.
That's brilliant. You're brilliant.
Not tomorrow, but come, because we're closed for the Victoria Day long weekend. We're going to take a little break. But what else was I going to tell you? Oh, we're always open at ChristineClassandGallery.com. Website's always there, so you can have a look at the images from Madeleine's show. And I look forward to, talking to you and showing you this beautiful show in the gallery sometime soon. So many thanks again to Madeleine, and everyone have a really wonderful long weekend.
Yeah, have a great one.
Cheers.
Okay, cheers. Bye.
Bye.